Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the ATACMS issue, too, you notice there's language in that it said, subject to our own readiness. Is there an issue without getting into classified session, generally, that would have to be considered in any kind of dispersion, whether it's Ukraine or otherwise?
Yes, Ranking Member Keating, we would look at readiness considerations, and they would be a clear factor in our decision making. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I noticed, Mr. Jones, in your testimony, you highlighted again for the second time that heads of state from Australia, Japan, New Zealand, and South Korea will be joining NATO at the Vilnius summit, and that's significant. As we look to China, and you look at the threat that China, currently exerts with a building military and its other types of coercive activities, that's quite a statement to see these countries join together again as partners in this summit. Two things. How significant is that in sending a message to China? And also, again, can you underscore the importance of our victory and Ukraine's victory against Russia in terms of posturing towards China and their threats?
I think the presence of NATO's 4 Indo-Pacific partners is significant, and it signifies the evolution that NATO has gone through as it increasingly recognizes the challenges that the PRC poses to Euro-Atlantic security, and it has become increasingly important agenda for NATO. This has followed years of effort by the United States, and we're seeing increasing convergence of views between our European allies and the United States on the way we recognize the challenges posed by the PRC. And NATO has responded in a couple ways, one by really focusing on what NATO can do to reinforce resilience of our NATO allies to resist a lot of the coercive policies and pressures from the PRC, and also by expanding its partnerships in the Indo-Pacific. And that's what we're seeing at this summit for the second time. I think there is also increasing realization that what happens in the Indo-Pacific also impacts security in the Euro-Atlantic space, and the reverse as well. So the outcome of the war in Ukraine is extremely important to show that countries who engage in aggression, who violate the principles of sovereignty and territorial integrity and use force to try to redraw borders will not succeed. And that is a message that will be particularly important, that the PRC take the right lessons from the outcome of this conflict.
Yeah. Ms. Cooper, do you want to comment in terms of our defense posture and how important it is to send a message, not just a message, but the reality that these countries, like-minded countries in terms of values, are coming together on issues as a deterrent to China?
Yes, Ranking Member Keating, I would say that one sign of the importance of this and the shared unity is not just the participation at NATO, but also participation by countries around the world in the Ukraine Defense Contact Group that I had referenced earlier. And I will tell you that, from my consultations with our Indo-Pacific allies, they are watching this very closely, and they want to ensure that there is an unequivocal message of support for Ukraine, an unequivocal condemnation of Russia's actions, lest we send a signal to other dictators around the world.
I also think,
yes.
I'm sorry.
Please, sir.
I'm approaching my time here, but so it's not lost in the overall picture, but still important, I think. What can NATO do to incentivize Georgia to halt some of its democratic backsliding and continue to make the reforms necessary for eventual NATO membership? I think this is important to underscore the need for these kind of reforms as we go forward, too, with other countries as we approach the summit.
So I can answer this from not just the NATO perspective, but the bilateral perspective. I know that we, with our NATO allies, are very concerned about what we see in political developments in Georgia. But at the same time, we have to make sure that we are continuing to send that message to Russia that they must not press forward and continue their aggression in Georgia. So it means that we have to maintain our military-to-military relationships. We have to maintain our capacity-building efforts, but at the same time send very strong political signals to the leadership.
Thank you very much. I yield back.